Hello everyone, welcome to the Chapter 10 lecture in Analytics. This chapter is on online / digital / interactive / internet, whatever you want to call it. Not a lot of complicated math here, just lots of concepts. So let's jump right into it. If you've got a website, you want people to come to your website, you're very interested in hits. How many, individuals are coming to the website, basically. And it's kind of, over time and can include, the number of, hits on all the pages across, all the different visitors, okay? So page view is just the number of pages viewed. And then files on the page, this is a little odd, but websites have sometimes kind of files. You can't see them, it's just kind of the way they're organized. And so one way to calculate hits is just to take the number of page views and multiply it by the number of files on the page, and that gives you hits. And we can move the equation around to solve for either of the other two. So let's give you a couple examples here. You've got a 3-file web page, generated 300,000 page views. You end up with total hits then of 900,000. You've got a 5-file page that created 250,000 hits. Okay, we're solving for page views, so you end up with 250,000 divided by 5, or 50,000 different page views. Okay, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, not much to it. This is kind of, basic digital, analytics. You should have your certification by now, so this should seem pretty elementary, and in fact most of this chapter should as well. Okay, average rich media display time. We want to know how long people are on our websites, especially if we have a lot of rich media, videos and things like that. Okay, so we can basically take the total time across all visitors, how much time they spent total on rich media, and we can divide that by number of impressions or number of visits, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so a good example here, Nike has placed an ad. We're going to use this Nike example for a number of different calculations, so just get ready for that. So Nike has got some particular ad where they calculated that the ad was viewed for a total of 437 hours. Over 1.2 million impressions, or you call that views. All right. So the question is, what is their average rich media display time? So it's important to know that you need to convert total display time from hours into seconds, because if you leave it in hours, if you divided 437 by 1.2 million, you get a super tiny number. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around. It's kind of like the cost per thousands that we talked about in a previous chapter. So the first thing we do is you convert hours to seconds, and quite simply all you do is you take the hours and multiply it by 3600, because there are 3600 seconds in an hour. Okay, that gives us 1.5732 million seconds, and then we plug that into our formula, so our average rich media display time is 1.31 seconds. So on its face, that's not a very good number. Okay, but if you dug deeper into that, you might find that a certain percentage are on the ad for a minute, or 30 seconds, or a minute and a half, which would be a lot, which actually would be considered very good. So 1.31 is on average is bad, but again, you could have a lot of people who just kind of totally skip the ad. That kind of brings that average number down. Okay, rich media interaction rate. So basically total rich media impressions with interactions. So basically the total number of people who, or visits where they watched the ad, or at least part of the ad, and say clicked on the ad would be a good example, over the total number of impressions, or again, views. Okay, so we'll stay with our Nike example. They received 45,000 interactions for this ad. I remember there were 1.2 million impressions, so we get a rich media interaction rate of 45,000 divided by 1.2 million, or 3.75%. Okay, pretty simple. Hopefully it's clear. Clicks and click-through rate. We want to know what percentage of people click on an ad. Okay, similar to rich media, but if we can just be talking about very basic like Google Ads as well. And again, you learned this in the Google Analytics exercise. Same with our Nike ad. They had 2,000 click-throughs. I do not know why there's a question mark there. Just ignore that. Okay, remember we had 1.2 million impressions, so our click-through rate is 2,000 divided by 1.2 million, or 0.17%. Pretty low, right? Yeah, pretty low. The question is, how low is that? So I'm going to show you some statistics on the next page that kind of give you some average click-through rates across different industries, and you're going to be shocked at how low these numbers are. Okay, getting ahead of myself here. So let's assume their average click-through rate was 0.57%. Okay, they get 0.17% on this particular ad, but their average was 0.57. How many click-throughs would they have expected for this particular ad? It would have been 6,840 instead of 2,000. So they have to sit back and ask themselves, well, what happened? Just people weren't interested. The technology wasn't as, the ad itself wasn't as vivid or attention getting. You got to kind of figure that out. Okay, so you can apply kind of an average click-through rate to the click-through rate of any particular ad to kind of compare the success or failure of it and getting people to click on it. Okay, now we'll look at the average click-through rate. Okay, so the highest is legal, 1.61%. Retail is 1.59%, and then we go down from there. Apparel is 1.24% there on the far left. So if I'm Nike, I'm concerned because my average click-through rate is well below, is less than half of the average. Okay, but just these are Facebook ads. Google ads are probably a little higher, but not by much. So if you're using interactive ads, you've got to understand that you're just not getting a whole lot of people to click on. And that's just the nature of the beast. Okay, something else to kind of think about here. We have this kind of process that consumers go through when they see ads, and especially in the digital environment. Okay, so you've got a potential customer. This person never sees an ad, so they're basically what we call out of the process. They're never going to buy the product because they never know about the product because they didn't see the ad. Okay, but if consumers see the ad, then they're included in what we call cost per impressions. So you've paid so much money for this particular ad. Each person or each view of the ad goes into the denominator, what we call cost per impressions, and impacts your your cost structure there. Okay, if they see the ad but don't click on it, they fall out of the process as well. But if they do click on it, then the consumer falls into the cost per click. Okay, and then if they don't buy, they fall out of the process. But if they do buy, then that individual customer is included in what we call cost per order. Okay, so let's just do some basic calculations. With these, staying with our Nike ad, okay, let's assume that this ad that we've talked about, it cost them $1,300 to place it online, okay? And we know that they got 150 orders from it. Let's work through these calculations. The first one is cost per impression. So all we're going to do is take the cost of the ad and divide it by, pardon me, the number of impressions. So 1,300 divided by 1.2 million, cost per impression is 0.0011. So pretty small, okay? So there is that, but we also have cost per click. I'm going to sneeze again. Cost per click, just basically you take the ad cost and you divide it by the number of times the ad was clicked on. So in this case, our ad cost was $1,300, 2,000 clicks we got from a previous page relating to this example. So 1300 divided by 2000 is 65 cents per click. Okay, then we have cost per order. We know that we got 150 orders from this particular ad, cost us $1,300. Therefore, our cost per order is $8.67. Okay, so the question then, is that good? Is that bad? We don't know. It depends on a lot of things. What is your typical margin on that particular product? Could be lots of things. If you're selling pizzas and you make $2 per, then this is not good. But if you're selling tractors and you make $3,000 per, you'll be very happy with that number. Okay, so it just really, really, really depends. Okay, going back to cost per click for a moment. Here are examples of the average cost per click across different industries. Okay, can be very expensive. Legal is the highest, kind of also like cost per, the click rates we talked about before. It's also the highest for at least for search, ad search, ad display. It's not too bad. Employment services is very high as well, and so just give you an idea of kind of what we're looking at here. So again, if the margins on your products are very thin, you got to be really worried about cost per click and cost per order. Definitely. Okay, thinking about hits more, just kind of another little schematic from the book. You've got one visitor, he comes to your site 3 times. He views 20 pages. He could end up with 200 hits. So that's per customer. So it's the attention is good, getting them to come back is good. So you've got to figure out how to keep consumers coming back, and that typically is done through fresh content, things like that, which are also good for SEO and lots of other Google Analytics categories as well. Okay. We also want to know something about what we call Clickstream, just basically, and we don't have any calculations for this, but basically, what kind of path do consumers take as they navigate our website? They come to the home page, the welcome page, then where do they go? Do they go to news, or do they go to features, and then from there, where do they go? And so this would be the example of one particular visit. This person came to the welcome page first. Obviously, that's the landing page, they call it. They went to news, then they went to features, back to news, and they went to in-depth, and they went to sales, then they went to login, and then back to sales. So that's the clickstream. So kind of taking that as a whole across all your views, say in a month, the fact that they're not going straight to features, or they're not really going to member benefits at all, you may want to kind of figure out what's going on, because the more hits, the better, the more impressions, the better. If they're not using all your pages, you need to figure out what's up so you can hopefully increase the traffic there. Okay, abandonment rate. So now we're talking about e-commerce. So, e-commerce is buying things online. So, most sites have a shopping cart, an online basket, whatever you want to call it. You put things in those baskets and then you buy them or you don't buy them. Okay, so abandonment rate is just the number of times someone puts something in their shopping cart but then doesn't buy it. Okay, so the basic formula here is just carts not completed, or we can call those carts abandoned, divided by the number of carts or baskets that were started. Okay, so REI, Recreational Equipment International, or Incorporated, great company here, got a really good e-commerce site. They do really good business online. So they've done an analysis over some particular period of time. They had 3,400 people start a cart or a basket. They had 1,500 people that never purchased what they had put in their basket. So they ended up with an abandonment rate of 44.12%. Okay, so let me ask you again, is that a good number or is that a bad number? In other words, is that high or low? You may say, oh my gosh, that's high. 4/9 of all of their initiated carts or initiated baskets were never purchased. Well, let's look at some averages again. Actually, 44% is fantastic. Okay, so they would be, I guess, in sporting goods or style and fashion, and 44% is way lower than 71.9% or 69.1%. So kind of the nature of the beast, just like the number of people who don't click on an ad, or the number of people who say no to a sales call. The number of people converting, actually following through on a purchase through a shopping cart is pretty low. Okay, so you can talk about strategies to try to reduce the abandonment rate, things like email reminders, leaving it in the shopping cart for when they come back. There's some other things that companies can do to try to reduce abandonment rates. Be very transparent on your prices, because if there's a lot of add-on fees and surcharges that aren't expressed in the individual product price, they're going to be surprised as they start going through the shopping cart and in the checkout process, and they find those figures. So being more transparent is another way to reduce abandonment rate. Okay, conversion rates. Conversion rate is just the number of consumers who actually make a purchase divided by the number of visitors to the site in the first place. And this has nothing to do with the shopping cart and the abandonment rate. This is not the inverse of abandonment rate. This is a little different. Okay, so you got so many customers that are visitors that come to your website. What percentage of those actually make some sort of purchase? So sticking with REI, 57,000 visitors over a particular time frame. The conversion rate then becomes your number who purchased divided by number of visitors. So what I've done here is I've applied the abandonment rate example here. Okay, so basically you had 3,400 initiated baskets, you had 1,500 that never made the purchase. So the difference between those two is those who did make a purchase. You divide that by 57,000, you get 3.33%. Okay, so it's not the inverse of abandonment rate, because that would be 100% minus 44%, which would be 56%. So this is a little bit different, but we calculated the number of purchases in this particular example based on the abandonment rate. Okay. All right. Let's see, bounce rate. So if you go to a web page, you hit the landing page and then you leave. You never go anywhere else. You never create a clickstream like we talked about a minute ago. Then what you've done is you've basically bounced. You've gotten to that first page and then you've left. Okay. Not good. You want people to, like we said, kind of click through a bunch of different pages, get information, hopefully put things in your shopping cart and follow through and purchase those things. Okay. So they discovered that of the 57,000 visitors to their website, 21,000 of them only hit the main page and then they left. So they're going to have a bounce rate of 36.84%. Again, is it good? Not bad, actually. If you look at it compared to different industries here, industry averages are all well above 50%. Okay. So if you're at 36%, you should be pretty happy. Okay. You can also apply a lot of these cost per formulas in the social world. Okay. You place an ad, or you spend time building up your Facebook page, your Twitter account, things like that. You can divide those costs that are involved, divided by number of friends, number of likes, number of retweets, anything, any metric in the social world you can put in here and determine your cost per whatever that engagement or activity is. Okay, cost per like. This is 3 years old, but you can see here that cost per likes are pretty low. Okay, this is Facebook, I think, and so if you're on the desktop, your cost per like is higher than if you're on mobile. The right column in Facebook, where you can see ads, is going to be the lowest, but also so it kind of gives you an idea where people are actually viewing when they're on the page. Okay. more formulas, very basic ratios here. Average revenue per user, or if you've got, established, accounts with people, they come to your website and they set up an account, then, you can just basically use that to determine what is the average revenue per user. We could take this into the mobile world, the number of, the average time on an app, say it's the Facebook app, for example. Total time divided by number of sessions gives us average session length. You can do that globally or by individual user. Okay. Different mobile apps have different, average session lengths. Games is the highest by far. Media and entertainment is the second highest, and then so on. I would expect maybe if we got updated data on this, we might see that media and entertainment is now higher because the average session time on YouTube nowadays is very, very, very high. Okay. Here's another calculation that companies can use if they have a website and a brick and mortar store. They can measure online to offline conversion. So maybe it's important that they get consumers to come into the actual store. Think about a car dealership, for example. People don't necessarily buy cars sight unseen over the internet. Yes, some do, but typically they don't. Okay. So you can measure kind of the ratio between in-store visits and online visits or online engagements, online interactions, to get like an online to offline conversion. So we're always talking about driving traffic to websites, but we can also use websites to try to drive traffic to physical locations. Okay. If we're talking about email marketing, lots of different calculations we can do. Open rate, just basically what percentage of individuals who received the email actually opened it. Email click-through rate is what percentage of those who got it actually clicked on it to go to whatever the page was or the offer was. Email unsubscribe rate, what percentage of those who were subscribers asked to be taken off. We do this a lot. We subscribe to some newsletter thinking it's going to be great, and then after about 4 different emails, we're like, oh, I'm done with this, so I'm getting out. Okay, so it's important that marketers understand kind of what is the optimal frequency to not only maximize open rate and click-through rate, but also at the same time minimize the unsubscribe rate. Okay. And then there's email bounce rate. This is a little different than the website bounce rate. This basically has to do with the number of emails that didn't get delivered. They gave a bad email address, or their mailbox is full, and so in other words, the email didn't get to the person. Okay, that's called email bounce rate. Open rates on emails, benchmarked by year. 2006 was a good year, and then things started to go down, and then they started to go up, and now they're kind of fluctuating. If we had this data back to the late 90s, you would see the open rate was much, much, much higher. Email marketing was, and just the internet in general, was new and it was novel, and people liked all this new stuff, and so we were much more apt to click on an ad online or to open an email solicitation online as well. Okay, here's an example of a dashboard where you can kind of look at an email campaign, basically how many were opened, how many bounced, how many were never opened or currently have not been opened, click-through rate, all kinds of things. So if you get involved in a company where you're involved in email marketing, you will have some sort of dashboard like this to help you manage the whole process. And so, if your click rate is 2.3%, you may be like, well, that's not good. So how do we increase that? Or how do we increase the number of emails that actually get opened? Okay, so you'll typically would have some goals related to the email campaign, and you will basically then, over time adjust what you do, try new things, try different things in order to try to achieve those goals if things aren't going the way you had planned. Okay. Cost per engagement, again, online, anytime someone likes, forwards, retweets, clicks, favorites, any of those things. Those are all what we consider engagements. So you can actually have more broad than cost per, cost per click or cost per something. You can have just what we call cost per engagement. Again, not going to do any calculations here. Okay, and that's it for chapter 10. And again, that's it for lectures in this particular course. So hopefully you enjoyed this material. Again, this chapter, not a lot of complicated formulas, a lot of concepts here I went over that you're not going to be required to do any calculations on them. But just want to kind of give you a good kind of broad overall view of some things that are going on with internet marketing, analytics, and evaluation. So that's all I've got. Thanks.